Ford Expedition again.
Okay, Ford Expedition. If you went in and you hit the key and the battery was dead, what would you have?
I did that.
A problem, right? Now, if you went out to the expedition and changed the windshield wipers, would that solve your problem? Okay. Now, if you step back and you diagnose the problem, I have a bad battery. As soon as you diagnose the problem, what falls in your lap? Go get a damn. Yeah. So not only does a solution fall in your lap, the plan of action does too. Now, if you change the battery, because that's the problem, would the windshield wiper work? Yeah. And then you could go somewhere now, huh? How many of y'all come in here and y'all got a bad battery, but you keep changing the windshield wipers and you never ever go anywhere? Now, everything you do or don't do in this program hinges on the first step. The first step is the foundation of the whole plan of recovery. And if you don't lay the foundation solid, everything that you build on it will come tumbling down on top of your head. How many of y'all have ever walked into an old house, old wood house, frame house that's up off the ground, and the doors stick, and the windows won't open right? And how many of y'all would say, golly, they didn't build this very good? It's not the structure. It's the foundation that the structure sits on, is why the windows won't open right. The doors won't close. Now, if the foundation is rickety, will the structure be that way? Now, how many of y'all come in these treatment centers and you never lay the foundation solid 100%? So the spiritual structure that you try to put on it comes tumbling down on top of your head. Now, I tell people this all the time. I've never struggled with 2 through 12. Not one time. Once I did. Now, it took me about 27 years to do step 1. But once I laid the foundation, and it was solid, no cracks in it whatsoever, 2 through 12 has been a walk in the park. Now, how many of y'all come in and y'all say, well, I've been sober for 4 years. And I look at you and I go, whoopee did. Charles Manson stayed sober for 47. Now, what's the longest you've ever stayed dry? Okay. Now, which one do you think you missed?
One.
Well, I say you missed all 12 of the some bitches, because you never laid the foundation. Now, how do you know if the foundation is solid? How do you know that? Well, look, I probably won't know it for sure until they put dirt on me and I stayed sober the whole time. But I got some indicators that it's pretty solid. One of them is when I did step 4. Because I didn't leave nothing off. Another indicator is when it comes time to make some of these amends that I really don't want to make, I make them. See, another indicator is I continue to. Now, how many of y'all come in to these places, you gain some semblance of recovery, and you try to just stay there? Now, if you could just stay there, we would have a 100% success rate. When you leave, you are sober. Now, anything God creates would be you and I. Anything God creates, it does one of two things. It grows or it dies. The human life, you cannot maintain it. It's either growing or dying. Now, what have you been doing before you got in here? Growing or dying?
Right.
Okay. Now, what happens is somebody comes in. All of a sudden, they quit dying, they start growing again. Now, for 28 days, are you going to meetings? You're doing the steps. And you can call it what you want, but are you working with a sponsor? So for 28 days, what are you starting to do? Grow and grow and grow. So when you walk out the door, are you feeling pretty good about yourself? Yeah. And a lot of y'all think you can just stay right there. And right then and right there, unbeknownst to you, you have already started to die again. Now, if you leave out of here growing, and why are you growing? Meetings, doubts, sponsorship. So if you keep doing that, you can grow to any level in this program that you choose to. Now, in the big book, they talk about the ones of us who have got to that fourth dimension of existence that most of us never dreamed possible. And I guarantee you, if you're there, you don't have to ask yourself, are you there? See? You would know. See? And it would be like if once you get there, guess what you want? And yeah. But if you're not there, okay, and it would be because when you walked out, you tried to stay right there. Recovery will start to get real mundane to you. You'll just go through the motions. It'll get real boring and you'll go, I don't like this. And your mind will start telling you, well, I know it's something you would like. Look, I'm telling you, in this program, you're going to grow or die. If you look at a 100-foot oak tree, that oak tree starts as a little bitty seed, and it grows from the inside out. And as long as that thing's growing, guess what it could never do? Die. Now the second that tree quits growing, you may not be able to see it with the naked eye, but what does it automatically start to do? Die. So as we say in the program, you're growing or going. Now, when you got out of treatment, you were doing supposedly what you were supposed to. The first year or two, were you doing this? Now, did you start trying to do this? And was it just a matter of time? You didn't see it or notice it, everybody else did. You started doing that. And when you did, they go, hey, what are you doing? And you went, I take your own damn inventory.
Yeah.
You to a T, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, what we're going to do today, we're going to try to help you lay the foundation. Look, we can give you the mortar, we can give you the sand, but you have to mix it. And you have to mix it just right. Because anybody that knows anything about foundation, if the mortar and the sand's not right, it'll crumble. Now, how many of y'all have had the mixture before? But the way you mixed it, it had too much sand or too much water, and it crumbled right under your feet. So what we're going to do is try to help you with the mixture. Now, there's two things that you have to know. Now, how many of y'all come in here, and when you first come in here, I sort of hit you between the eyes with some truth. And I tell you the reason you're in here is not because of the drinking and the drugging. It's a result of self-will run riot. Now, don't get me wrong. Are drugs and alcohol a problem for you? Of course they are. Are they the root of your trouble? Now, how many of y'all get the lingo down while you're here? Because look, you would have to be almost brain dead to sit through 28 days with I and not be able to recite some good information about an allergy and an obsession and blah, 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 blah. Just because you can recite information, does it mean that you've admitted you were powerless?
No.
It just means one thing. You can recite information. That's all it means. Now, good, bad, or indifferent, I promise you one thing. If you want to change your life around, you have come to the right place. And if you stay here and don't change your life around, the information that you get and can recite, it's going to destroy your using days. Because once you're armed with information about Alcoholics Anonymous, a head full of AA and a belly full of booze is not a good mix. And most of y'all know that in here. Now, 3 pieces to the puzzle. What are they?
Problem, and preventative action.
Okay. Problem, solution. Now, cancer. Would y'all say cancer is a problem in our society today? I would. Now, had they ever come up with a surefire solution to cancer? I can tell you they haven't. And most people think the researchers don't understand the solution. But that's not true. Once the researchers identify the problem, guess what probably already exists? A solution. Then they can come up with a treatment plan or a plan of action that you can take that would get you out the problem into solutions. So, basic problem solving. It works on any problem.
Solution.
Now, if I told you, what were you using, your favorite thing? If I would have told you 6 months ago where a shit pile of heroin was, but you can't write it down, you just have to listen to me, you would remember it like that. Now, tomorrow we'll come in here and ask you, what are 3 pieces to the puzzle? You'll go, I don't know. See, when people really want this, they don't have to wait. It goes in this ear, it'll get trapped up here, and it'll never leave. Now, if you like staring out over there, when we tell you stuff that can save your life, the next day we ask you, what did you say? So every second in here is valuable, it's crucial, and it's vital. So you have to come in here, and you have to come in here ready to go, whether you want to or not. You did dope whether you wanted to or not. And it's got to be the same thing with this. Please quit playing with your hair. Oh, how y'all function in the real world is beyond me sometimes. Now, what are we going to try to get across to you in these 28 days?
Problem, solution, plan of action.
Very good, class. Now, today, we're going to hit on step 1. Now, I want you to open your book to page 59. To 5 and a 9. Now, I want you, what's your first name? Okay. Oh, hell, girl, you look 1,000 times better with makeup. I wouldn't leave the house without it. I want you to start reading step 1.
We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable.
Okay, did you miss anything? I read it again, don't miss nothing.
Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable.
Did she miss anything? Huh?
Not reading it, but,
You read it.
we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable.
Did she miss anything? You sure?
Yeah.
You read it.
We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable.
Did she miss anything?
Yeah.
What?
The dad?
Yeah. Look, it says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Dash. Now, they put that in there for a reason. It separates step 1 into 2 parts. 50% of step 1 deals with being, the other 50% deals with. Now, most of y'all come through here. Matter of fact, all y'all that come and stay, they'll get this part. You'd have to be brain dead not to get this, because we drill it. We get some real masonry bits, and we drill it through concrete. But where most of y'all go off the wagon is here, the second part. Now, step 1 is the only step that we all have to do the same. And it has to be done 100%. 2 through 12, we can't do them all the same. But you have to do them to the best, the very best of your God-given ability, whatever that is. But the first step we all have to do is the same. And you have to do 100% of it. And to do that, you have to do the first part, which deals with being what? And then you got to do the second part, which deals with what? And if you do step 1, all of it, you've done. Now, how many of y'all come in? You gain some semblance of recovery. You get this part. And things go so well. After a period of time, you think you can manage shit again. I'm sober and I've been that way and shit's going marvelous for me. But you forget why shit's going marvelous and you're sober. So what do you try to start managing again? Your life. And for a little while, it'll go okay. Then the genius kicks in with you, and you start to think you can manage to use it again. Right or wrong?
Right. Very right.
Well, y'all hate to say when I'm right, huh? Right?
That's right.
Look, I'm telling you, a lot of people take these steps and then they take them backwards. Now, what we're going to deal with right now, the first part of class, we're going to deal with the first part of the first step in class. Now, what we're going to do before we get going, I want you to turn to the table of contents. In the table of contents, if you're going to study this book, okay, and this is a textbook. Textbooks were meant to be studied. If you try to read the first 103 pages of this book, it'll go. Woo! The stories in the back, where most of y'all want to go back to, that's what you read back there. But the first 103 pages, the basic text of our society, it's the directions, how to take the steps. This is the only book that's ever been put on paper with directions on how to take the steps. Now, how many of y'all get this book and you try to read it like a novel? If you do, it's gonna go whoop. Now, when you went to school, you were learning arithmetic, math, whatever you want to call it. Did you, like in kindergarten, did you jump straight to tell the teacher, hey, fuck, I want to do algebra today? See, how many of y'all come in here and y'all want to jump straight to how it works, the algebra part, and y'all ask don't even know how to count? Now, when you got to kindergarten, physical, they taught you numbers. Then they taught you how to add or count, then
Add,
subtract,
multiply, divide.
and then fraction.
Yeah.
Now, did the teacher give you that textbook and say, "Ah, fuck, figure it out"? Or did she go straight and stop and explain everything to you? And what did you learn how to do?
All those things.
Numbers, count, add, subtract, multiply, division, fraction. Now, how many of y'all take this book and think you know everything? The first thing you gotta learn some numbers and how to count. Then we can start adding and subtracting. Then we get to some multiplication, division, and fraction, and then we do the algebra. But because AA and alcoholics are ass backwards, the numbers, the counting, the add, subtracting is the hard part, and the algebra is actually the easy part. Now, what we're going to teach you, okay, is how the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the textbook for our society, is laid out. Now, I want you to take your pen, mascara pen or whatever kind of pen you got. I want you to go from the preface down to forward to the first edition. And I want you to put all those in parentheses and put history. Well, if you got a fourth edition, it would be the fourth edition. If you have a third edition, it would be the third edition. What do you have?
Well, you said first.
Okay, preface to the fourth edition, which is what most of y'all have. Now, that's the history. It tells you how all this got started. It tells you some things about AA. Now, how many of y'all, when y'all started doing heroin, you started to want to know how to make the shit? The history of, yeah, and you was all up in that shit. Now, the first time they started telling me about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, I went, what the hell does that have to do with me not smoking crack? Now, unbeknownst to me, one of the main parts of this thing is helping others. So when I take on a sponsee, I got to be able to tell them a little bit of something about, yeah, if they ask me, well, how do all this get started? I go, fuck, I don't know. I probably lost them right in and right there. So I have to know a little bit about the program that I'm telling them is going to save their life. Now, step one, I want you to put in parentheses the doctor's opinion and Bill's story. Now, look up here. The doctor's opinion explains the first part of the first step. Bill's story shows you someone who is, and life has become
Unmanageable.
Now, I see you have it marked. Which ones do you have marked for step two?
The agnostics.
Step two is actually 3 chapters. Now, what's the next one after the Bill's story? Okay, the next one, the next one.
We agnostics.
Those 3, all 3 of them deal with step 2. So that should tell you a little something. is pretty damn. Now, it says came to believe. Now, we agnostics deals with the power of believing. A power greater than ourselves. And there is a solution. They tell you about the fellowship of power greater than you and the program of power greater than you. Restore you to. More about alcoholism deals with the insanity of the first one. So all three of those deal with step 2. 3 chapters. So what did that tell you? It's very, very important. Okay. Now, what's the next chapter? Okay. How it works deals with steps 3 and 4. Into action is steps 5 through 11. And the last one, working with others, is step. So we just laid out to you how the big book is laid out. Now, after page 103, that's the last page of working with others, there are no more directions for the steps. Now, how many of y'all have ever heard of Joe McHugh? Joe and Charlie Big Book Study Tapes. I had the privilege of being one of the last ones he trained. Now, when I went and did training with him, I learned a lot. At the time, I really didn't know what I was getting. I was not very hip on what was going on. But I look back today and I go, boy, I was very, very fortunate. Not lucky, fortunate. Now, I would tell you, he is one that I would put a lot of stock in what he said. Now, I also had the privilege to go to his funeral. And I know a lot of other people in Baton Rouge said they went, but I assure you they did not. Because it was only 2 of us there. A lady from Marksville and me. Now, Charlie of the Charlie and Joe Big Book Study Tape said Joe's eulogy. And he said, I can just imagine Joe up in heaven sitting on a bench next to Bill Wilson explaining the big book to Bill. Now, he preached the first 103 pages of the program of recovery. That's the directions for the 12 steps. After the page 103, there are no more directions for the steps. Now, how many of y'all get this book and you turn to the stories in the back? But the program of action, you don't want nothing to do with it. Now, do you know why they put the stories in the back?
No.
It's just yes or no.
No.
Okay. Do you know why?
No.
Do you know why? Do you know?
No.
Do you know?
I think I know.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this yet. Go.
Because before you go to meetings, you look how we home.
My
Because you used to not.
God, I hate to say this, but you're right. Boy, you ain't heard that in a while, have you?
Look at you.
Because
Look.
you used to not be able to go to meetings unless you were sober.
When the book was first written, the fellowship consisted of about 50 people when the book first started getting written. By the time they finished the book, the fellowship had grew to 100. 100 people in 3 cities. So there weren't a lot of meetings to go to. So if you were down here in Louisiana, you would have to go to New York City, Cleveland, Ohio, or Akron to go to a damn meeting. So what they did, they put the stories in the back of the book, and they called them meetings in print. That's how you could go to the meeting. Now, we don't have that problem anymore, especially in Louisiana. I don't know if y'all realize this or not, but Baton Rouge and surrounding communities, we have some damn good AA. Not very good, damn good. We have a lot of meetings to go to. Now just think if you were trying to get sober back then, and you had to go way in one of them cities to go to a meeting. How many of y'all, they got a meeting a mile from your house and you go, oh, I don't have a vehicle. Well, start walking. You would have walked a mile to get some dope. How many of y'all say, well, the meeting's at 7. My ride can only drop me off at 5 o'clock, 2 hours before the meeting. If the dope man would have said, meet me at Circle K at 7 p.m., your ass would have been there at noon.
Yeah.
Now, how many of y'all, when it comes to recovery, you've used some of those same excuses? Well, I worked all day. I'm tired. I didn't want to go to a meeting. Well, when you worked all day, which was rarely, and you were using dope, how many of y'all said, well, I don't want to use dope tonight. I'm tired and I worked all day. Okay, enough of the preaching. We're going to move on. Now, the textbook of Alcoholics Anonymous, program of action, is in the first 3 pages. Now, see what happens when you listen and don't play with your hair or look out the window? It's amazing when you listen.
I learned that from you. I've been listening.
Please don't put that on me. Step 1. Identify step 1 as the problem. And the problem is twofold. Now, again, we're talking on the first part of the first step right now. Now, part of the problem is physical, and part of it is mental. Now, you have to be able to distinguish the difference between a craving and an obsession. Now, I don't care what a bunch of educated ass people tell you. In respect, in terms of the big book, gotta know the difference between obsession and craving. Craving is physical. Obsession is, and you gotta know the difference. Now, how many of y'all have said you're a week sober, 2 weeks sober, and you go, man, I sure am craving a drink? Anybody ever said that? Thought that? You're not craving it. You couldn't crave it because it's not in your system. What you're doing is mentally obsessing about it. And you got to know the difference between the mental part and the physical part. Now, once you pick the first one up and you dump it into your system, you set out this thing they refer to as an allergy of the body. And that allergy sets off a physical craving. Now, Dr. Silkworth, in the doctor's opinion, the reason he referred to it as an allergy is because at that point in time, that's sort of what he was thinking. Now, an allergy, it's an abnormal reaction to a chemical, a food, or a substance. Now, in order for me to know what's abnormal, first, I got to know what's normal. Now, I'm going to give you some normal reactions to an opiate. I got a sister. She's not one of us. She's one of those fucking normal people. She was cleaning her house one day, and she stands up on a stool, and she's wiping a fan down, and she lost her balance and fell. She breaks her elbow. Now, this is back when you go to the emergency room before y'all screwed it all up. And they would give you pain medication then in the emergency room. But y'all have made that where somebody can't get that anymore. Now, she comes out the emergency room with a big ass bottle about that big around, about that tall, full of Lortabs. Now, 6 months later, every one of them is in there except a half of one. Because when she took a half of one that first night, it made her sick to her stomach. Made her almost nauseated. That's a normal. Now, how many of y'all would go ask her, you got how many? What's wrong with you? How many of y'all would say that or think that or ask her that? Now, how many of y'all, that bottle would have lasted you about 3 days? And after you ran out, you would go, I'm going to fucking clean the rest of the pan that fall. Now, how many of y'all, when y'all put that half in y'all, that first one, you would have set that allergy off, it would have produced a craving physically, and you would have ate all of them and be looking for more. Now, how do I crave it? By putting the first one in. And if I never put the first one in, I can never set off the craving. Now, how many of y'all in here, y'all on this heroin, and you've been on it for a while, and it takes a little while to get the physical craving off, and it takes even longer to get the damn sick feeling away and all. Now, look, I'm not a chemist. I've been around some, but I'm not a chemist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. But give or take 72 hours, depending on your body weight and metabolism, 72 hours, give or take, the physical craving should be gone. So if you haven't had anything in a week or 2 or 3, there's no way you would be
Obsessing.
Now, y'all hold on now. I want y'all to turn y'all's books to XXB in 3 hours.
XXB in 3 hours.
Now, what is an allergy? It's an abnormal reaction to any chemical, food, or substance. Now, how many of y'all say, well, I'm not alcoholic because all I do is drugs? Anybody ever said that? Look, alcohol, it is a drug. It's the oldest known drug on the face of this earth. Now, this is how I know I'm alcoholic, plain and simple. When I put alcohol in any form into my body, I set off this allergy and it produces. Now, how many of y'all say, I don't drink? Can't be alcoholic. I don't drink. But I promise you, if I dropped her off on a deserted island, and I said, I'm going to be back in 6 months to get you. Here is 6 months worth of food in a case of Jack Daniels. When I came back to get you, would all the food be gone? No, it would be. It's called self-preservation. Now, would every bottle in that case of Jack Daniels be in that case unopened with every seal on it? No, because once she got irritable, restless, and discontented enough, she would have cracked one of them bottles open. And when she put the first one in, she would have set off, and she would have drank all those damn bottles then fucking started looking for some coconuts to drink. How many of y'all, when y'all can't get your hands on it, which is very rare, you get irritable, you get restless, and somebody goes, well, here, try this. That's why when you told me what you told me, I guarantee you, if somebody would have laid out 3 lines of heroin and had you snort them all, when you came to, because you'd have nodded out, and they said, hey, all I got's these 5 rigs, I would bet my house that at some point in time, you would have went. Because this would have got you. Now, since you've been snorting it, have you been able to get your hands on the powder part? How long have you been snorting heroin?
Since I'm 28.
Since what?
Since I'm 28.
Well, I don't know how old you are.
Oh, 36.
Okay, now,
About 8 years.
all that time, have you found it access pretty easy?
Yeah.
Okay, now, what would happen if somebody gave you a quarter now? And after you snorted that, they say, hey, there's no more powder to be found. I got this.
I don't know. I don't.
Say that again.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what a normal person would say? I know. Now, how many of y'all in here, you try to put yourself in these certain classes? Well, I'm not alcoholic. I've never had a DWI. Well, I'm not alcoholic. She's had 3 DWIs. I've only had 1. I couldn't possibly be alcoholic. She's been married 5 times. I'm still married. And we try to judge ourselves. That's not how you do it. What makes somebody like me alcoholic is this right here. When you put the first one of anything, liquid, powder, pill, or rock, do you set that off? Does it produce that? Then guess what you are? Alcoholic, plain and simple. And how many of y'all want to go, oh, I'm not alcoholic, I'm an addict? Because you think those alcoholics are down here in the gutter with trench coats on and a bottle of Thunderbird with a brown paper bag. Some of us are. How many of y'all say, well, alcoholics drink? I ain't had a drink in almost 20 years. I'm still, because of this. This is what makes me alcoholic. I will always be alcoholic. And anytime I put any form of it into my system, that gets set off and that is produced, and I end up on one of these. Now, how many of y'all go, well, you know, I can take it and use for a night. And I didn't end up on this. Look, sprees can last a couple of hours, a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years. If you've been using every day something for 5 years, guess what you've been on? That's right. Your body has never physically got off the craving. Now, this part here, can we do anything about it?
No.
Once you got it, you in the class. Now, the physical allergy over any considerable period of time, whether I'm using or gets worse. Now, the physical allergy never gets better. It always gets worse. Now, almost 20 years, I hadn't put, is the allergy the same as when I quit using 20 years ago? Is it better or worse?
Worse.
What would you say? Huh?
Say worse.
Okay. What would you say? What would you say? Why? Because they did. Look, The physical allergy never gets better. Look, I hadn't had anything in almost 20 years. Next week will be. The physical allergy in my body is getting worse the whole time. When I put alcohol into my system, something happens in my liver and pancreas. I don't break it down right. And so by not breaking it down right, my bloodstream gets up here and sets off something physical. Now, the liver and the pancreas, they're like big filters. And the older I get, the worse my filters get, whether I'm using or not. Now, how many of y'all have stayed sober for a little while? 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. And you pick back up. And you fell off like a ski jump in just a matter of days, weeks. How long before it was worse than ever? Same day? A week? A month?
I would say a week.
Yeah. How long?
3 days.
How long did you stay sober?
3 years.
How long before it was worse than ever?
2 weeks.
Yeah. This never gets, it always gets.
Worse.
How long before it was worse than ever? Yeah. Now, the physical part, can we do anything about it? Huh?
Not for the first week.
Yeah, but that would be, can we do anything about that?
No.
So if you got it, you.
Got it.
Now, the good thing for us is, that ain't the crux of the problem. This can get as worse as it won't if I never put. And the reason I keep putting the first one in is because of the obsession. Now, the obsession, the mental twist, which leads to the first one, that's the crux of the problem. And that's where all the steps do their work. In the mind, not, look, between this ear and this ear, that's where the steps work. If you don't take the steps, like the book says, you won't get better up here, you'll actually get worse. Now, how does somebody form an obsession? Since this is the crux of the problem, or the main problem, you've got to know all you can about the obsession. Now, this thing you got up here, it's called a brain. What you basically have up here between your ears is about $1 billion computer. And how many of y'all have the audacity to try to alter it with drugs and alcohol? Now, my computer up here, what it does better than anything else, it records success. And I'll prove it to you. When you were a small child, physically, and you were learning to tie your shoe, did you do a lot of hitting and missing? Did you? Now, the first time you ever got it right, bam! What did this thing record?
How to do it.
Success. So every time after that, did you retrieve the success or those hits and misses? Now, if they ever come out with a better way to tie your shoe, and you were to learn that, it would push the old way. And every time you got ready to tie your shoe, you'd go back to that new success. Y'all with me?
Yeah.
Now, the first time you ever used, second time, the first time I ever used, this is what I did. I went, woohoo! Shit, I done found something here. Guess what this thing recorded? Success. Every time after that, I ran up on a problem up here. Guess what this thing told me to go get? Some more success. Now, in the early days, did it work? Yeah, fucking worked great. So now, that was my solution. Now, what happened over the years, my solution that used to work, boomeranged on my ass. And now it was a problem. But I couldn't quit putting. Now, how many of y'all? Now, like me, when I first started using, the consequences when I first started were very minor. I might have got caught with some weed or some just real minor consequences. But the relief I got from the first one, I said, fuck, I can deal with those little minor consequences. I ain't about to stop using my solution. Now, over the years, this is getting worse. So now, cravings are getting worse. Now, and now the problems are getting worse. But guess what I still have recorded up here?
Success.
See, every time the success kicks in, it don't remember those hits and misses. Like my legals, my work, my financial, don't remember none of that. Now, like I told you, until you learn a new way to tie your shoe, if a new way came in, it would push the old way. Now, right now, your success, even though it's not working anymore, is to put. And every time your mind says, I need some relief, which you do, it doesn't say, hey, but what about those hits and misses? All it says is, you fixing to get some fucking relief. Now, until you replace the old success with a new way to tie your shoe, you going back to the old way, even though it ain't working no more. Now, what I have put myself in a position to do is receive some of this. And this is where I get my ease and comfort now. Now, do I still get irritable, restless, discontented? And my mind says, you need some. Now, I got a new way to tie my shoe now. I have a new obsession today. And when it kicks in, it overrules everything. But my new success or new obsession says do. And I do this right here, and it's just like putting the first one in. Well, with 10, 11, and 12 don't set off. So effectively, I got a new way to tie my shoe. Now, how many of y'all still got the old way to tie your shoe, and every now and then you'll buy some fucking Velcro shoes? And once you get tired of wearing them motherfuckers, you go back to the old way. And when you start tying, you go, damn, I wish I had them Velcros again. See, whenever you got tired of Velcro, you went and started using again. And you went, damn, I wish I had them Velcros again. Now, how many of y'all sitting in here, y'all are going, well, what does Velcro shoes and tying your shoes have to do with me getting sober? If you're thinking that, you have listened to almost nothing. You've heard everything, but listened to none of it. Did you get the point? Did you get the gist? Now, up here, do you still have the old way of tying your shoe?
I don't want it.
I didn't ask you that. What? Look at. Do you still have it? Huh? Is it still there? Huh? Yeah.
I think so,
Because you've done nothing yet.
because I haven't.
Yeah. Now, Right now, though, are you going to some meetings and getting some information and feeling a little better about yourself?
Yes, sir.
So if you left right now, without doing anything, you're leaving with still the old way to tie your shoes. And you will
You.
lose again. You have no choice. Look, this is a true story. I had a guy come in treatment one day. First day he's in there, we happened to be on there. And he is just fucking like staring a hole through me. And I'm going, fuck you, listen. Next morning I go to work, I go, where's so-and-so? Oh, he left. I said, what? Oh yeah, he called his wife and told her come get him. He knew what was wrong with him now. That's a true story. A week later, guess who's coming back with his tail tucked between his legs? He could recite it, but what he failed to realize, what was really going on with him. And that somebody's got him. And it didn't take long. See, how many of y'all sit in here and y'all go, oh, I know about the allergy and the obsession. And boy, you get in these fucking meetings we have here with other people who don't know anything. Yeah, and you start talking about it like you a counselor now. But when it comes time to do something, you go, I mean, shit, I know more than her. I don't need to do that. But you still got the old way to tie. Now, an obsession is a thought or an idea that overrules everything. Now, some people have obsessions to put dope in them, alcohol in them. Some people have obsessions for food. I happen to have an obsession for 10, 11, and 12. And when my new obsession kicks in, it overrules everything. Wife, kids, job, everything. And I go to 10, 11, and 12. And when I do, I get relief. Guess what? I don't set off. Yeah. Look, I don't know about you. I'm going to get relief. One way or the other. I'm going to get it here or I'm going to get it here. The difference, this one's temporary. This one stays stuck for a while. Now, the obsession you got by putting this in. Do we both get relief? Yeah, let's talk about results then. What kind of results you get from your relief?
My kid gets taken away from me, being born addicted to opiates, horrible things.
It's horrible. It's horrible. Things that you used to think happened to other people and would never happen to you. What's some of the results you get? And that's not even the hard one. Look, how many of y'all, you hadn't been a daughter, a sister, a wife, a mother in a long time? Fucking Carl, we can replace that, even if it's just a hoopty. We can replace it. How many of y'all have started off like up here on a roller coaster when you first started using, and you start coming down slow, and it's so slow and so subtle you don't see it, and you do something that mortifies you. You get used to that. You come down a little further, and you do something else you said you would never do, and that fucking mortifies you. And you just keep coming down and down and down. And it's so slow and so subtle, you don't see it. But everybody around you goes, what are you doing? And you go, nothing. They go, what's wrong with you? And you go, Nothing. What's wrong with you? Now, how many of y'all are down here and you look and you go, how did I get here? How did this happen to me? I'm not like that. Look, I can remember sitting in treatment, lost everything, and go, how did I end up here? You know, how many of y'all have ever heard the story of the prodigal son? You know, he tells his daddy, look, I want my inheritance and I want it now. I don't give a fuck about nothing, just give me my check. So the old man says, okay. Gives him his inheritance. He goes off, spends it on wine, women, and songs. Now ain't one up, huh? He ends up in the pig pen. Now ain't one of us, huh? So he's in the pig pen slopping the hogs. He's shucking and jiving and shit, and everything's fucking great. Then one day he goes, I'm in the fucking pig pen. The guy next to him says, fuck man, you've been here. Once he saw where he was at, then he could do something about it. Now, how many of y'all been in the pig pen for a while, shucking and jiving? I'm all right. Everything's fine. And inside, dying. He's dying. And you finally say, I'm in the pig pen. And we go, fuck, you've been there. Now, you can't get out the pig pen unless you see you in the pig pen. Now, when I saw I was in the pig pen and had been there for a while, guess where I've never, ever, ever, never, ever wanted or have been back? That's right. And I've had some things happen to me in sobriety. I've lost a job. I've lost a relationship. I've lost family members, like 4 back to back. Been diagnosed with cancer. But one thing is always in my mind. If you ain't in the big pen. How many of y'all get out of these places and the least little thing that happens, you go, ah, fuck it. The physical part never goes away. We can do something about the obsession. Now, if you got this obsession, this thought or idea that overrules everything to you, and you couple the obsession with the allergy of the body, once you start, you have no control over how much you're going to use or where you're going to end up. You are one powerless ass person. How many of y'all have ever read the story in the big book called The Jaywalker?
Yeah.
Let's read it. Turn to it. You know which page it's on?
I don't.
Do you?
38 to 39.
37. I think. It's 30-something.
It's 38.
Well, there you go. You're sitting at the table where everybody's right. No, actually, it's 37.
Yeah, it starts.
The last paragraph, I know. I just wanted to see how long you were going to play along with it. Okay. The last paragraph on page 37. Do y'all all know what a jaywalker is?
Yes.
It's somebody who runs, what? Fast moving cars. Now, how many of y'all would look at a jaywalker? Let's say we all walked out there and they had this guy, every time a car comes, he ran out in front of it. What? How many of y'all would go, what's wrong with him? And he would look at y'all and go, nothing. What's wrong with you? Now, how many of y'all would go, I cannot believe he keeps doing that?
I would follow.
Huh?
I would follow.
No, you wouldn't. Never put some crack on the other side of the road, you would. All right, back in the book. It says our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first one as that of an individual with a passion, obsession, same thing, different words. You have to know how the big book's written. The author, Bill Wilson, likes to use different words that mean exactly. So obsession, passion, different words that mean the same thing. Say for jaywalking, he gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Now, how many of y'all people, when you first started using, went, damn girl, you better watch yourself or you wreck yourself? How many people gave you some friendly warnings? He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Up to this point, you would label him as a chap having queer ideas of fun. See, look, how many of y'all went, well, shit, I'm just a teenager, I'm having fun. What's the harm? Nothing, but most people outgrow that shit. It says, look, then deserts him. And he's slightly injured several times in succession. Now, how many of y'all, the first 3, 4, 5, 6 times that you ran into some problems, you went, oh, I'm just having some bad luck. Not one time do you go, I might be, I'm just unlucky. Now, do any of y'all watch college football? Okay, y'all probably heard me say that. Next season, because this season's ended, watch the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They normally play the first game on NBC in the morning. At halftime, they got this little green son of a bitch. He runs up and down the sidelines. They call him a leprechaun. That's luck. Luck has nothing to do with nothing. Nothing. When you face consequences, that's God telling you, hey, quit doing what you want. Start doing what I would have you do. And instead of dropping consequences on you, I'll start blessing you. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. How many of y'all had some normal friends that used to party with you as a teenager and they went, I'm done, I'm good? See, if you were normal, they would expect you to cut it out. You cut it out? Have you? So you ain't normal. Presently, he's hit again. This time, he has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving Woodlake, a fast-moving trolley car breaks her arm. She tells you she has decided to stop jaywalking for good. How many of y'all come out of these centers and y'all tell people, I'm done. You ain't got to worry about me no more. In a few weeks, she breaks both legs. On through the years, the conduct continues, accompanied by her continual promises to be careful or keep off the streets altogether. Finally, she can no longer work. Her husband gets a divorce. Don't say she wants one till her husband does. He's tired of the bullshit. She's held up to ridicule. How many of y'all have been held up to fucking ridicule. And y'all go, I didn't know why they're talking about me, like you really don't know. You know every reason in the book they're holding you up to ridicule. She tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of her head. She shuts herself up at Woodlake, hoping to mend her ways. But the day she comes out, she races in front of a fire engine, which breaks her back. Such a woman would be crazy, wouldn't she? They make me come in here with y'all every day. Crazy ass people. I love crazy people. You may think our illustration is too ridiculous. How many of y'all read that and y'all go, yeah, I mean, but come on now. Come on, really? If they really trying to compare me with a jaywalker? I mean, I go to church on Sunday. Uh-huh. You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer have to admit if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely insane. That means you got a piece missing. And the piece you got missing is your thinking when it comes to the first one. That piece is missing. Let's keep reading. Some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we have not gone to the extreme you fellas did, nor are we likely to. For we understand ourselves so well after what you have told us, such things cannot happen again. Oh, but they can. And worse, if you don't do something. We have not lost everything in life through smoking crack, and we certainly do not intend to. Now, this is what we tell people who say that. This is what we tell them. Look, we got it. Thanks for the information. That's what we tell y'all. Because see, the reason we tell y'all that is because we made all the same excuses you made. Now, first part of the first chapter deals with two things. The mental obsession coupled with the physical allergy renders you powerless. Now, we're going to talk about unmanageability. Now, if we take the drugs and alcohol out the equation, guess what we still got? You. Now, before I ever used drugs and alcohol, it's like I had a little campfire burning. And somewhere around 11, 12, it's like I took a cup of gas, it was called alcohol, and I poured it on that little bitty fire, and shit really exploded. So in my mind, I thought, well, the reason my life was unmanageable is because I threw that gasoline on it. So the only thing I ever tried to do was get the gas off and keep it off. But let's say we take the gas, the accelerant off. Guess what I still had burning? A little self-will fire. So if I take the dope away, guess what I still got? Yeah. See, how many of y'all go, well, I just need, I can just take sober. What's sober? What's sober? I tell you all the time, Charles Manson, sober 47 years. I don't know if I want to just be sober. Now, in recovery, from people who know what they're talking about, They say we got two things. We have sobriety and we have sodriety. And I would assume that a lot of y'all have had some sobriety. Because if you ever get some real sobriety, you'll never want to go test the waters again. Now, I want you to turn your big book to page 52. Now, would you say your life has become very unmanageable? Wake up! And would you say your life has become very unmanageable? Woo-hoo. It's a question.
Yes.
Okay. Been sitting next to her too long. You need to sit at another table tomorrow. Now, is your life unmanageable? Why? Huh? Yeah. Look, your life's unmanageable because you are the one that manages it. Sober or loaded, if you manage it, guess what it'll always be? Now, when you came out of treatment, when you came out, how many of y'all were somewhat not managing everything? How things go?
A little better.
Okay. A little better though. How'd they go? How'd they go? How'd they go? Huh? No, the first couple of weeks you out.
It was good.
Okay. Sober, it was going okay because you wasn't. Now, you said you were hands not in it as much, right? So you said it was going how? A little bit better. You said because your hands were a lot out of it. How was it going?
Great.
Because your hands were way out of it. Y'all with me? Now, I'm sober. If I'm not doing this, because I hadn't done this, because I made the decision that I really don't want this, I just don't want to use again, I will try to keep running the show. Now, when you started running the show again, managing things, how'd things start to go?
Really shitty. Terrible.
So when you started getting bad results, at that instant, did this thing go get some dope? Or did you go, well, look, I'm just having a couple of rough days, I'll just go to some fucking meetings. And then sooner or later, you quit doing that. Now, here we got sobriety. How long were you in sobriety before this kicked in?
At least 2 years.
Yeah. And each day, you got worse and worse and worse. How long were you in sobriety? How long? How long? Yeah. Now, when you start managing again, sober, this is sort of what starts to happen. Page 52 in the middle of the page says we had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problem the same readiness to change our point of view. Look up here. How many of y'all, when it comes to changing your point of view about using, you fucking all in? But when it comes time to change your point of mind about managing your life, how many of y'all go, well, I know, I'm going to keep doing that. So you've only taken 50% of the first step. Your foundation has some cracks in it. And anything you build on top of it is going to come tumbling on your head. Now, when you're managing it, sober or loaded, I want you to see if you can answer some of these questions, okay? I want you to pick up reading where I left off. Go. Read it loud.
We were having trouble with personal relationships.
Stop. How many of y'all having trouble with personal relationships? Good.
We couldn't control our emotional nature.
How many of y'all can't control your emotional nature? You're like this. You're either like, look, you go, woo, 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 woo. Keep going.
We were a prey to misery and depression.
Anybody? How many of y'all, when y'all wake up in the morning, y'all go, oh, fuck, I'm up. Good.
We couldn't make a living.
Anybody? Has this affected you making a living? Good.
We had a feeling of uselessness.
Anybody? Good.
We were full of fear.
Anybody? Good.
We were unhappy.
Anybody? Good.
We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people.
Now, how many of y'all ain't used no dope today? Y'all better all raise y'all hand. And you still have those things going on. So if we just get the dope out the picture, all that should be gone if that's what it was. Now, when you first got out of treatment, were some of those things getting better? Now, slowly but surely, you started to put your hands back in the mixed soda. And did all that shit start happening again? Yeah. So, and you got such horrible results, this thing came back and said, I know how you feel better. How many of y'all like a roller coaster on with y'all's emotions? Something goes good, whoop! Least little thing happens, woo! Whoop! Woo! Now, when things happen good for me, do I go? I do. When something happens tragic like death, sickness, go. But it's sort of like a even keel. It's not whoop, woo, whoop, woo. Somebody that's like that, there's no way they can have sobriety. Now, if somebody asked you, if you were powerless over drugs and alcohol, what would you say? Yes or no?
Yes,
Why?
because I have physicality and emo obsession.
Okay. If somebody asked you if your life was unmanageable, what would you say? No, would you say yes or no?
Oh, yes.
Why?
Doesn't look connected in my-
Because you're the one that manages it. Now, I can say that shit all day out of my mouth. How do I know? Since I've been fooling myself for a long time, how do I know that I mean business this time? There's a couple of ways. In here, we never have to tell you nothing. Nothing. Most of y'all who are really doing the deal, I don't know your fucking name. The ones of y'all that I know your name are the ones I hear all the time because we always got to tell you something. If you come up to me 6 months after you leave here and you didn't work for us and you were the model patient, I'll go, I know you're going to have to 10-step this, but what's your name? But if you're always looking out the window, fixing your hair and shit, I go, oh yeah. Yeah, nothing changes. Look, people who really want to get this, to quit running their own life, they let. Now, another way you can sort of tell if you're serious about this is when we give you these 4-step papers, there's not a doubt, a hesitation in your mind. You get it, you go right to the source. Worst shit you don't want to tell nobody is the first shit that goes down there. And if you do that, You are well on your way. But if you are still not wanting to do what the book says, you're still trying to do what you said. So you are managing what? You're gonna get the same thing in work that you've always got. Comments? Questions? I want you to turn your big book to page 30. I want you to go to the first paragraph, full paragraph on that page. It says, we learned. Now, the ones of us that have taken step one, 100%, we have learned this the hard way. And this is what we learned. We had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were. This is the first step in. Now, why do you think, no, not you. Why do you think they say I have to admit to my innermost self? Why do you think they say that?
If you don't, then you don't really believe it.
No, that's not wrong, but that's not really what I'm looking for. Why do you think?
So like you're not honest with yourself, can't be honest with.
Why do you think?
God is like in your inner self, so you're admitting it to God.
Bingo. See, look, how long have you been fooling yourself about shit? How long, how good are you at fooling other people? But you know who you can't fool? Right. That's why they say I have to fully concede, fully, to my innermost self, because that's where God is. And I'm telling you, when I fully conceded to my innermost self, He took care of the rest. Because He knew I was serious. And I fully conceded in an apartment about 2 a.m. with a shitload of crack and a bunch of booze. And I went, I give. I fucking give. I don't want no more of nothing. Nothing. Dope, me, nothing. Since that morning, I've never forgot that morning. I could tell you what was on TV, what I was wearing, what the fucking couch looked like I was sitting on. There's something else I've never forgotten. And that was the first one. Now, I don't know if it's prerequisite for becoming an alcoholic and getting this, but two things are etched in my mind. The first one and the last one, like it was yesterday. How things going around here, you think? Right? What do you think? What do you think? Y'all can actually tell me the truth. What do you think? Come
How
on.
are things going around here?
Look, how are things going around
Okay,
here?
so what are you asking about the community?
Huh?
We got our community.
It's in general, the facility, the community,
I gotta
everything.
be willing to do whatever.
Huh?
I gotta be willing to do whatever, so I don't feel
But
like it's
I
ethical
just-
by no means. I feel like it's not ethical by no means.
Well, it's not, it's Denham Springs.
I know.
Yeah,
And
that's
we're
why it's
definitely
not ethical.
interested.
But look, let me ask you this. What you get here, now that book, is it out?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, are the accommodations a little different? Okay. Did you come here for the accommodation or for that book and what's being presented to you? Okay, and that's why I'm here. So we could have two places doing the same thing, in 3 places, in 4, and 5. and we can help everybody. How's it going with you? Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy it. I think I'm actually learning something now.
Okay.
If I'm not listening.
What about you? Okay.
Don't be scared of reading.
You don't have to be.
No, I'm good.
Look, I have.
I'm good.
How's it going with you?
I'm learning a lot.
Okay. And look, that's what you came for. You did come to get some recovery. Look, I gotta tell y'all, these accommodations are by hands down some of the best I've ever been around. Because if you had went where I went, you would have left the first day. But let me tell you something. When we got up in the morning, guess what they turned off? The air conditioning. And they didn't turn it back on until after the meeting at night. You could see out the ceiling if you were on the second floor, and if you were on the first floor, you could see out the floor.
Where you was.
Don't worry about that.
That don't matter.
But what I got here and out that book is one of the reasons I'm standing up here today trying to give you the same thing. That's why when you come in here and you're not listening, I make sure you start listening. Because I know where you're heading if you don't. And it's not fun at all. Y'all get ready for lunch.
I have a question.
What's your question?
Wait,
What's your question? Come on.
The whole addiction thing with physical energy, is it because what you said, our bodies don't break it down like the same as other people?
I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it never will. Because you've had a lot of practice if it would.